Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like we are absolutely correct. It looks like the EFF is not going to be around for much longer.
No, so for those of you who don't know what happened to the EFF, well, the EFF had some Gorgos money in it. The Gorgos money disappeared. It all got looted. And loads of people got really rich, and the Gorgos lost their money, the bank collapsed, and that's pretty much the end of it. So what we're now trying to figure out is who stole the money? Because we want to ask them to pay back the money. Well, it turns out after many, many years of having this search for the VBS loot, it's a bit like looking for the old lost ark of the Covenants. We kind of find out where it went. And it turns out it went to that place we knew it went all along. The EFF, Juju's pocket, and many others closely linked to the Juju faction.
That is absolutely correct. So we know this because of an affidavit by the former chairman of VBS, who, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, spent 300 million rand in 7 years. Let us just think about that for a second. 300 million rand in 7 years. If I had 300 million rand, it could feed my family 5 generations down the line. But this guy spent it in 7 years. Anyway, some people are just like that. So anyway, his affidavit basically said he went to the EFF because VBS gave a loan to Jacob Zuma for Nkandla, 7 million rand loan, and the EFF said, who's VBS? What a cuckbank. So he went to the EFF as the head of VBS, said, no, don't tell us we're a cuckbank, don't tell the world, please. How can we come to an agreement? And basically, well, as with any revolutionary, they said, pay us the money, baby. And that's exactly what he did. He paid the money to Floyd Shivambu's brother. They received 5 million rand up front and then a million rand monthly to a total about 16 million rand. And it appears, Byron, that those funds given to Floyd Shivambu's brother was used solely by Floyd Shivambu and Julius Malema. It didn't actually go into the EFF bank account.
No, gee, I wonder why. Maybe because then everybody would have had an audit trail back to the EFF. And so the only way to launder money is to put it through various front companies. I mean, that's just money laundering 101, isn't it? Apparently, we're meant to believe that these guys, remember superior logic, don't know how to commit money laundering 101 because they never do that. Just like the South African Communist Party, who love the poor, would never ever take any money from VBS ever because they're pro-poor. I mean, that's why they make so many of them, right? So at the end of the day, I just can't believe that would happen. Oh, wait, it did. They got how many million, Ramon?
So the South African Communist Party got 3 million rand from VBS Bank. And then when Blade Nzimande, the Minister of Science and Innovation, that guy, he came out to say, well, if we knew we got it, we'd have paid it back. And the response to that is, well, now you do know you got it. Have you paid it back? It seems like they have.
Ramon, remind me, how many hectares of land was bought with all this VBS money? Because the land is so important that we must give back the land. So how many hectares of land was bought with all this looted money?
Yeah, strictly zero, between 0 and 4 call, as far as I understand. So Julius Malema and Floyd Shivambu got 8 million rand apiece, let's say. Floyd Shivambu bought a Range Rover, and he paid for his wedding in Zanzibar. And Julius Malema, well, I don't know. I think he spent it all on those shoes that he went to Durban July in, and maybe school fees for his kids and things like that. He still lives in the house of Adriano Mazzotti. He still rides in the cars of Adriano Mazzotti. And he didn't seem to have bought a single piece of land with the 8 million rand that he received. Now, 8 million rand could buy quite a lot of land. But for Julius Malema, no, he doesn't want to buy land. He wants to take it.
Yeah, but you see, what's really interesting, Ramon, is I don't believe this. Julius is a good guy. And according to this affidavit, he spent 900,000 rand on Gucci. Did you know that? 900,000 rand. And the thing is that the guy is so specific about when it was bought. If you actually go back in time, and then you notice Juju did a conference, one of his stage performances the next day. Would you know, Ramon? Yeah, he was wearing Gucci. Wonder where you got that from. Coincidence, I'm sure.
It's the essence of being a black communist. Like, you steal money from black gogos to buy European designer outfits. I mean, that's the way the cookie crumbles. Don't hate the player, hate the game. But anyway, enough bullshit, Byron. Where does this leave the EFF? Because for the first time in my life, I am starting to believe that the EFF is becoming very dispensable. And this could be the final nail in the coffin for the leadership of the EFF.
So, Ramon, I'm reminded that during the coalition arrangements, there was a leaked document which was prepared by the ANC for the NEC, which was disputed as fake news. Well, if you recall, Ramon, one of the key things they said about the disadvantage of working with the EFF was VBS, looters of Gogo's money. So no one wants to work with them because of the threat of the Gogo's disappearing money and the EFF being tied in with that, coming out to becoming mainstream media, which it now has. So what do you think is going to happen?
Here's my reasoning and my thinking for thinking that the EFF is going to go down now, like properly, like in terms of prosecution and prison time. Number one, they're not in coalitions anyway. The ANC is going to collapse the coalitions in Gauteng, apparently this week, but within a few weeks, to make way for the GNU, for the Government of National Unity, bring in the DA, bring in the IFP, and then run the municipalities together. Number two, as we said last week, Vicky Limbalila came out to say EFF is a direct threat to the ANC. They want to kill us. They say that we are a party in decline as the ANC, and they want to eat the meat from our bones. So therefore, we'll never go into power with the EFF based on their presumption, which I think is quite fair. Number three, if you take out the EFF, the ANC immediately gets maybe an extra 5 or 10% bump in the election because the EFF is eating the ANC. So now if the EFF is no longer there, reason dictates that those people will go back to the ANC. So I think it could well be over for the EFF at this stage.
Fikile Mbalula came out and said he wants a lekgotla to discuss the emergency losing of the electorate and the vote that happened during the last vote. It's kind of like there's not much you can do about it now, but you've got 5 years until the next one. Well, anyway, he wants to discuss it because his main idea now is he wants to figure out where it went wrong and how to fix it in future. And no doubt this is going to feature because let us remind ourselves, the whole idea behind the EFF is that the EFF would land or work as basically the ANC's cushion. If it fell, the EFF would help it and keep it stable, would keep it in a degree of stability. But the EFF didn't get enough votes. They lost all of it to MK. So the EFF was no longer useful. And now you see the ANC have had to reflect, go back to the centre and be a bit more pragmatic. And what they've realised is that MK is largely disorganised. The EFF is largely useless because they're full of corrupt people. And they don't actually get on that badly with let's call it the GNU guys. So you don't really need the EFF anymore. But I hear you, ladies and gentlemen. I hear you. Loud and clear. The EFF would never be prosecuted because they're scared of Juju. They'll burn the country down. And what do you think of that, Ramon?
Well, I do remember a time, say last year, where there was a sort of a national shutdown, if I remember correctly. It was in March of 2023, and the EFS were going to shut down the country for something. I can't remember. And all 12 people who participated were mocked. Oh, right. Yes, national shutdown for load shedding. And all 12 people who attended the national shutdown, I think the worst that came out of it was a lot of memes on Twitter about it. Here's the thing about the EFF. Their vote are sort of urban, aspirational, young black people who don't tend to burn shit down, and also the poor, old, rural people in Limpopo, and there's nothing to burn down there because there's nothing there. So I'm really not too worried at all about this sort of thing, to be honest.
No, and you see, I think that the threat of the EFF has now been overplayed because they're not a party in growth. They're actually a party in decline, which I don't know if you recall this, Ramon. We predicted that. But real life's not Twitter. And unfortunately, the EFF is no longer that relevant anymore because once they lose the municipalities, they're not the third largest political party in parliament anymore. And they are kind of starved by all the rejects that nobody else wants. So if you work with them, you now have to deal with all the people you fired anyway. Like, nobody wants that. That's the reason you fired them. You don't want to work with them. So yeah, it's actually becoming very tough. So the question, ladies and gentlemen, is Julius's time as Commander-in-Chief of the Teletubbies, is his time coming up? Because it does look like the establishment are no longer scared of him. It also looks like he's no longer that necessary. And you see, Ramon, when this happens, your opponent, if you want to call him that, has a habit of tending to disappear. And we are all now asking ourselves a question. How long before Julius disappears?
Indeed, there's no reason for him to exist anymore. The ANC has no need for him. I understand before the election, but now there's a government of national unity. They chose the opposite direction to the EFF, and they chose the opposite direction to making Zimbabwe 2.0 here. He is completely dispensable. He is of no use whatsoever. And actually, I think he is quite an irritant to the ANC in total and the GNU in general. So there's no reason for him to be around anymore. I expect this VBS scandal to be the downfall of Julius Malema himself and the EFF in general. And praise be. Let's hope so.